We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for February 17th, 2022. I'm Stephen Nelson, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Case number 29213 will be continued to April. And on page 3, case number 29220 will be dismissed. Case number 29073 will be continued till March. The administrative docket starts on page 3 with case number 29221 and goes through case number 29223. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases on the administrative docket will be placed on the oil and gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. We will begin with case number 29213, which is a motion of the Commission to order to consider the termination or any other appropriate action of the Bear Creek Duperow Unit, Dunn County and North Dakota, operated by XTO Energy Incorporated. This case is continued till April.
Mr. Examiner, may I just add a few words with respect to that? No change in the request, but I might just point out why XTO Energy is requesting this. First of all, Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck. I had an opportunity to speak with representatives of XTO Energy regarding this matter, and they believe that the unit should be dissolved. There are some affairs of the unit that need to be wrapped up in the next month or two, and after that we will be submitting to the Commission a certificate that has been recorded indicating that the unit is dissolved.
Lawrence, before we leave that case, we did receive a letter from the BLM indicating that the unit is now terminated, and I think it might be important on when we actually terminate our orders. We typically do it in conjunction with when you file that certificate of termination with the county. So you guys might want to think about that before we come to a hearing on what date, effective date, you want our order.
Yeah, and perhaps a little bit more explanation would be appropriate than Mr. Hicks. The only reason that we're requesting a continuance and more opportunity, I shouldn't say more opportunity, but this unit staying in place a bit longer is because we have some working interest issues to resolve. I fully understand what you're saying is that we don't want the federal government terminating at one date, the state of North Dakota another, and XTO a third date. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll look into that and see how we might get that resolved.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on. Case number 29166. On a motion of the Commission to consider the termination or any other appropriate action of the Lakeside Middle Rival Unit, Burke County, North Dakota, operated by RIM Operating Incorporated. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you once again, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter, case 29166, on behalf of RIM Operating Inc. The Commission should be in receipt of a certificate of termination that was filed with the Commission on 2/14 of 22. That is a certificate that was duly recorded with the Burke County Recorder's Office, and as a result of that, I think this should bring this matter to a conclusion.
Are there any questions from Commission staff? Seeing none? Anything further, Mr. Bender? I suppose.
Nothing further, thank you.
Very well. Well, that will conclude the hearing for case number 29166. Moving on. Case number 29214. Application of Continental Resources Incorporated for an order amending the field rules for the Jim Creek Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, to create and establish two overlapping 2560-acre spacing units comprised of sections 25 and 36, Township 146 North, Range 96 West, and sections 30 and 31, Township 146 North, Range 95 West, and sections 1 and 12, Township 145 North, Range 96 West, and sections 6 and 7, Township 145 North, Range 95 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 2 horizontal wells on or near the section line between the existing spacing units of each proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit, and or such other and further relief as appropriate. Would all interested parties please step forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck. and I'm appearing in case 29214 on behalf of Continental Resources, Inc. We intend to call 3 witnesses in this matter, Mr. Examiner. Our first witness will be in the area of land, Mr. Scott Davis. Our second witness will be a geologic witness, Ms. Layla Harris. And our third witness will be an engineering witness, Alex Cote. All 3 witnesses will be appearing by telephone. I believe they're on the phone right now.
Mr. Davis, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Good morning, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Can you state your full name for the record, please?
Yeah, Scott Davis,
And Scott, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources, Inc.,
And what capacity?
Northern Region Landman.
And in that capacity, have you had an opportunity to testify before the commission previously?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
I have.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
It will be accepted as that of an expert.
Scott, let's go to Exhibit L1 in the packet. Can you tell me what Exhibit L1 is?
Yes, Exhibit L1 is our general locator map. It has the existing field outlined in blue, and then both of the proposed 2560s are outlined in red and then shaded in yellow.
Let's go to L2 then, please. As you did with L1, identify it and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Exhibit L2 is a land plat of sections 25 and 36 of 146 North, 96 West, along with a working interest ownership summary for those sections.
And L3?
L3 is a land plat of an existing 1,280 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 30 and 31, 146 North, 95 West, along with a working interest ownership summary for those sections.
And L4?
L4 is a land plat for the proposed 2560 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 30 and 31, 146 North, 95 West, and sections 25 and 36 of 146 North, 96 West, along with a consolidated working interest ownership summary for that proposed 2560 acre spacing unit.
And in this case, Continental Resources has less than a majority interest. At this point in time, is there support from Burlington or Citation or other owners that would give you a majority?
This falls within our AMI with Burlington, where Continental is the operator of this area.
Okay. So let's go to L5. Tell us about that exhibit.
L5 is a land plat of sections 1 and 12, 145 North, 96 West, along with a working interest ownership summary for those sections.
And L6?
L6 is a land plat of an existing 1,280 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 6 and 7, 145 North, 95 West, along with a working interest ownership summary for those sections.
And then L7?
L7 is a land plat for the proposed 2560 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 6 and 7, 145 North, 95 West, and sections 1 and 12 of 145 North, 96 West, along with a consolidated working interest ownership summary for the proposed 2560 acre spacing unit.
And then can you briefly discuss again your relationship, your being Continental Resources' relationship with Burlington with respect to this proposed spaced area in the drilling of wells?
Yes, sir. This is within the AMI that we have with Burlington Resources, where Continental operates in this area.
No further questions of the land witness.
Does commission staff have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Ms. Harris, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Layla, state your full name for the record, please.
Layla Harris?
And I finally got your name right, huh?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And Layla, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources,
In what capacity?
as a senior operations geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
And you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be accepted as that of an expert.
Okay. Leila, let's go to Exhibit G1. Very briefly discuss what's contained on Exhibit 1.
Okay. Exhibit G1 is a top Bakken structure map with contour intervals of 50 feet. And displayed, shaded in yellow and outlined in red and purple are the two overlapping 2560 acre spacing units. The red star highlights or represents the type well, the Skachenko 31-11.
Okay, let's go to G2.
Okay, G2 is the Skachenko 31-11 type well, and this is a log from 50 feet into the bird bear up through 50 feet into the lodge hole.
Okay, and, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and down at the bottom, we've got some reservoir parameters here. The middle Bakken zone, the top and base of zone are listed. The gross thickness of 78.5 feet, porosity 4.88%, water saturation 27%. Ka average is 0.0011 millidarcies, and KH is 0.1141 millidarcies feet.
Okay, and I suspect since you gave us information on both the Middle Bakken and the Three Forks, those are the two targets for your proposed wells on or near the section line. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All the questions I have for Ms. Harris.
Are there any questions from commission staff? Okay, seeing none. I believe Alex Koki, was it? Are you still on the line?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, sir, I do.
Alex, you want to state your name for the record, please?
Alexander Cody,
And Alex, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources,
In what capacity?
a Northern Resource Development Engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, sir, I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
It will be accepted as that of an expert.
Okay, Alex, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, E1. Identify E1 and then briefly describe what's contained upon it and why it's important to the hearing.
Exhibit E1 is a directional plot for the two planned section line wells for each of the proposed 2560s. The first 2560 is comprised of sections 25 and 36 of 146 North, 96 West, and sections 30 and 31 of 146 North, 95 West. The current plan is for two section line wells within this corridor. The second 2560 is comprised of sections 1 and 12 of 145 North, 96 West, and sections 6 and 7 of 145 North, 95 West. The current plan for this is also two section line wells within that corridor. The main point of the exhibit is to outline the existing development in those sections with a solid green, pink, and blue lines representing existing Middle Bakken, Three Forks 1 and Three Forks 2 wells, respectively. The dashed green lines indicate the proposed Middle Bakken section line wells, and the dashed pink line indicates the proposed Three Forks 1 section line wells. And again, there's going to be a planned one Middle Bakken and one Three Forks 1 in each of the proposed 2560s.
Do you anticipate other development on the existing 41280s, or will it just be development of these section line wells as you have them depicted on E1?
We will develop the full units at the same time.
Okay, let's go to E2. Tell me what E2 is.
Exhibit E2 is a schematic of our typical 2-mile Middle Bakken well. We're showing a total depth of 21,000 feet with a 7-inch casing point of about 11,000 feet, which puts our total lateral length at approximately 10,000 foot. The lateral will be cemented and completed with 45 plug-and-perf stages paired with hydraulic fracturing.
All right, and the next exhibit, E3.
Exhibit E3 is a schematic for a typical 2-mile Three Forks 1 well. We're showing a total depth of 21,000 feet with an approximate 10,000 foot lateral in the Three Forks 1 interval.
The lateral will be cemented and completed with 45 plug-and-perf stages paired with hydraulic fracturing.
And E4.
Exhibit E4 outlines the reserves and economics for an individual 2-mile Middle Bakken well. Starting with the reserves, we're expecting an oil IP of about 1,050 barrel of oil per day, with an oil EUR of 555 MBO and an EUR GOR of approximately 1,804 standard cubic feet per barrel, which brings the combined oil and gas EUR to 722 MBOE. Looking at the economics, these are ran at 60 and 3 for oil and gas prices, respectively, with a total estimated completed well cost of about $7 million. With that 60 and 3 pricing and the reserves mentioned above, we're expecting a total PV10 of $7.27 million per well, a rate of return of 98%, and an undiscounted payout years of 2.4 years. Also shown are the reservoir parameters broken out for the Middle Bakken that Layla previously spoke to in Exhibit G2.
Let's go to E5.
Exhibit E5 outlines the reserves and economics for an individual 2-mile Three Forks 1 well. Again, starting with the reserves, we're expecting an oil IP of about 900 barrel of oil per day, with an oil EUR of 475 MBO and an EUR GOR of approximately 1,759 standard cubic feet per barrel, brings the combined oil and gas EUR to 614 MBOE. Looking at the economics, again, these are ran at 60 and 3 for oil and gas prices, respectively, with a total estimated gross complete well cost of $7 million, the 60 and 3 pricing, and the reserves mentioned above. We're expecting a total PV10 of $5.96 million per well, a rate of return of 79% per well, and an undiscounted payout years of 2.6 years. Again, the bottom shows the reservoir parameters broken out for the Three Forks 1, as Layla pointed out previously in G2.
And Exhibit GM1, is that a gas capture affidavit that is typically required by the Commission in these sorts of hearings?
Yes, sir, it is.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes, sir, it will.
Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have. We would offer the exhibits.
Okay, the exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from Commission staff?
Alex, how far are these wells going to be drilled from the section line?
Approximately 200 feet.
Thank you.
Alex, do you plan to drill these 4 wells from a common pad?
I think that they'll be split up with multiple pads.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from Commission staff?
Alex, sections 36, 31, 1, and 6 are currently a lease line 2560. I assume you want that spacing unit terminated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Anything further, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
Right. That will conclude the hearing for case number 29214. Moving on, case number 29215. Application of Continental Resources Incorporated for an order authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of the LCU Ralph 12227H1, file number 36954 well in the Long Creek Bakken unit, so portions of the drilled horizontal well are located less than the 500-foot setback from the lease line from the east line of section 34 setback and less than the 150 feet from the south line of section 26 setback, both in Township 153 North, Range 99 West, Williams County, North Dakota, as an exception to the field rules for the Long Creek Bakken unit and such other further relief. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. And I am appearing in this case, case number 29215, on behalf of Continental Resources, Inc. We intend to call 2 witnesses. Mr. Matt McMurray will be offering some land testimony, and Mr. Matthew Nelson will be offering some engineering testimony. And both witnesses will be appearing by telephone.
And are they on the line now?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay. Mr. McMurray, can you hear me?
I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under the penalties of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Matt, state your full name for the record, please.
Matthew McMurray,
And by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources, Inc.,
In what capacity?
as a senior landman.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
And have your qualifications been accepted as that of an expert?
They have.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Matt, let's go to the first exhibit in the packet, L1. Tell me what L1 is.
L1 is a general locator map with the existing field outlines in blue and the Long Creek unit outlined in red, shaded in yellow. Long Creek unit was approved by the Commission and the BLM in July of 2019, and the well for which we're requesting an exception location was drilled within the Long Creek unit.
And just very briefly, Matt, to kind of familiarize the commission again, the Long Creek unit was established as a primary unit, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. The new wells, not secondary recovery.
Okay, and the purpose was to give give Continental Resources, the operator, more flexibility with respect to locating wells as a result of the lake. Is that primarily the reason for it?
That's correct, the lake and the elevation, yes.
Okay. And when you say elevation, you're talking about terrain, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go on to the next exhibit then, Matt, Exhibit L2. Tell us what Exhibit L2 is.
L2 is a land plat. We just kind of blew up Long Creek unit here. It's outlined in, the tracks are outlined in red and shaded in yellow. The well for which we're requesting the exception location was drilled in track 4.
Okay, and the reason we're here today is that the well, and the engineering witness is going to get into this a little bit more in detail, but the well was a little bit too close to Section 35, or the boundary of the Long Creek Bakken unit, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's go to L3. Tell me what L3 is.
L3 is a working interest summary for the Long Creek unit, which Continental owns a controlling interest.
And the lands that Continental got a little bit too close to with its well in Section 27 and 34, those lands that are outside the unit, they're not common to the lands inside the unit, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for Mr. McMurray.
Are there any questions from commission staff?
Matt, this is Bruce Hicks. I don't know, Lawrence, if you want to answer this question, but who did you notify of this hearing?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that, and that's a little complex, so let me, and the reason it's complex is well, that's probably not a very good, but the spacing unit comprised of Section 35 and 5 also has some other overlapping spacing units. So what we did is that any spacing unit that had the west half of Section 35 included in it were provided with notice because of all the overlapping spacing units. So, and in addition to that, all the owners in Section 6 and 7 were provided notice. Not sure if they really were required to be given notice, but we were a little confused about the commission's desire to have this 150-foot setback included in the caption. So to be safe rather than sorry, we also gave those parties notice.
And when you say parties, who are you talking about?
Working interest owners, mineral owners, unleased mineral owners.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to your next witness. Mr. Nelson, are you on the line?
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under the penalties of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay, Matthew, I'll have you start with stating your full name for the record, please.
Matthew Nelson,
And Matthew, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources.
And in what capacity?
I'm a senior staff engineer.
And you've testified before the commission previously, is that correct?
I have not.
Okay. What I would like you to do, Matthew, is briefly highlight for us your educational background and work experience.
Yeah, you bet. I graduated with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering technology from Oklahoma State University in 2004. I've worked as a drilling engineer for Continental Resources for nearly 8 years, approximately 4 years in our Oklahoma stack and scoop plays, and 4 years in the North Dakota Bakken. Prior to Continental, I held engineering positions related to drilling at Baker Hughes and Sandridge Energy.
Okay. And in preparation for today's hearing, have you made a thorough study and review of all the relevant engineering matters concerning this exception location request?
I have.
And have you prepared or had prepared under your control and supervision some exhibits you intend to sponsor?
Yes, sir.
I'll offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
All right, Matthew, let's go to E1 in the packet. Could you please identify E1 and then briefly describe what's contained upon it?
Sure. This is the proposed directional well plot for the Long Creek unit. It's a general layout of the spacing of the wells with the yellow highlight showing the well that we have in question here with the hard line issue.
Okay, and let's go to E2.
E2 is a directional plot provided by our directional company that provided the surveys for the well, drilling of the well. It's zoomed into the measured depth of the lateral where we intersected the 500-foot east boundary hard line for the Long Creek unit, and then where we re-entered the legal east-west footage back into the Long Creek unit.
So in essence, this well got too close to the boundary of the Long Creek Bakken unit, and that crowding was of section 35 outside the unit. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go to E3, and now please tell us what that is.
This is basically the same plot, just kind of zoomed in with a couple of annotations to highlight the 500-foot hard line. Again, where we exited across that in section 34, which would be the boundary to section 35 for the Long Creek unit. So basically showing that we, in the table below, in annotations at 18,038 feet, we got closer than 500 feet from that eastern section line, and we re-entered the legal east-west footage at 19,806 feet.
Okay. Now it's it may be for you, but it's not for me to be relevant, to be apparent that we know how close you ever got to that section line. Can you tell me what the closest was that you got on that encroachment of that 500-foot setback? Does that question make sense? I can try to rephrase it if it didn't make any sense.
It does, and that's actually the one thing I didn't write down here, but I believe we were as far as 11 feet across that 500-foot line, so that would have been 500 minus 11 feet, so whatever that is.
So even though you had 1,769 feet of area that were closer than 500 feet, the closest you ever got was 11 feet closer than the 500 setback that you should have had.
Correct.
Okay, good. Matthew, tell us a little bit about just how this happened. How did you encroach the 500-foot line and go across for that many feet?
Yeah, so what happened here while we were drilling our production lateral, we inadvertently drilled within that 500-foot setback as we crossed into our second mile from section 27 to 34. We did not recognize this error until the final certified surveys were reviewed by the NDIC and brought to our attention. And we did verify and confirm that we did, in fact, cross that hard line after the fact. And kind of how this happened, the original plat that laid out the lateral spacing for the unit, referring to Exhibit E1 there. We had the east-west footage set up for this well at 510 feet from the east line for our bottom hole location. Normally we would drill a well and plan for a 30-foot window to prevent any incidental contact with the hard line. During the planning of this well, we kind of missed the fact that we were so close to that hard line in section 27. It was overlooked there for that second mile and not recognized that that was no longer Long Creek bordering us to the east. So this oversight allowed our directional personnel to continue drilling within what was assumed to be a safe corridor with a 30-foot buffer. Was actually, we only had 10 feet of room to work with for that hard line.
Okay, and what is Continental Resources doing or going to do in the future to avoid this sort of problem of ever happening again?
So we've shared this incident as a case study within the Continental Resources team, and we've added this to our standard checklist for items for pre-well planning phase.
Okay, and other than requesting what you have done here is the well to be treated as an exception location and being able to produce at its maximum efficient rate, are there any other practical solutions to the problem that we have here?
None that we see that would be classified as practical.
Okay. What are some of them if they're not practical?
Redrilling the well is one. It's really not feasible due to our surface constraints and location options. It's also not feasible due to the cost considerations. This particular well, we released at over $5 million due to some shallow drilling hazards associated with Dakota water flows, and actually resulted in P&A of 6 of the 7 wells on this pad. So we kind of lost the option for drilling any more wells off this particular pad.
And given the fact that the commission's order, at least it typically does, and I suspect it will here, includes provision that the well in question here will not be able to produce more than its equitable share of oil. In your opinion, will it protect relative rights?
Yes.
Okay. And it'll prevent waste, is that correct?
Correct.
And it'll prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
That's correct.
Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have. We would offer each one of the exhibits that were addressed by the 2 witnesses.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Matthew, is part of the confusion or reason for the error here is that part of the well, the first mile, approximately, really had no setback because it was well within the unit boundary?
Yes, that's accurate.
and Continental just overlooked the fact that the last mile was bumping up against that unit boundary?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
This well is drilled in the first bench in the Three Forks, is that right?
Correct.
And has it been fracture stimulated yet?
It has not.
Do you know when Continental plans to stimulate it?
I do not have that date in front of me. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Matthew, this is Bruce Hicks. Being it was advertised as not less than 150 feet from the south line, is that an issue? Do you know how far away from the southern boundary of the unit that the bottom hole location is?
The bottom hole location in at TD the well is greater than 150 feet from the south line.
And I might add, Mr. Hicks, I originally drafted the application not to include that language, but Mr. Holwager, he had some conversations with me and felt it was necessary, so we included it. And then that's why I made the decision also to notify those people to the south. I don't understand it, but I suspect he does, so.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Examiner, given the question that Mr. Bohr asked, could we leave the record open until Friday at 5 p.m. and we'll submit to the commission when we want to complete this well, because if it's relatively soon, we may want an expedited order, but if it isn't going to be relatively soon, there's no reason to put the commission through that. So I'd like to provide that information in a supplemental letter or exhibit or something.
The record will be left open until I have, what is that, February 18th, Friday, February 18th
Okay, sounds good.
at 5 p.m. Okay. Is there anything further, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
That will conclude the hearing for case number 29215. Moving on, case number 25686. A motion of the commission to consider the termination or any other appropriate action of the South Antler Creek Madison Unit, Bottineau County, North Dakota, operated by Continental Resources Incorporated. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter, case 25686, on behalf of Continental Resources. I can report to the commission that a certificate of termination that had been recorded, a copy of that, was filed with the commission on February 1st, 2022.
Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Is there anything further, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
That will conclude the hearing for case number 25686. Moving on, case number 29216. Application of Ballard Petroleum Holdings LLC for an order of the commission certifying the Chatfield Madison Unit, Bottineau County, North Dakota, as a qualifying secondary recovery project for purposes of eligibility for the tax exemptions provided by Chapter 57-51.1 of the North Dakota Century Code, and further determining the amount of crude oil which would have been recovered from the unit source of supply if the secondary recovery program had not been commenced, and such other relief. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. I'm appearing in case 29216 on behalf of Ballard Petroleum Holdings, LLC. And we intend to call one witness in this matter, Mr. Bryce Ballard. And he's the VP of Engineering and Operations at Ballard Petroleum. And I think he may have called in a moment or two ago when we were on the other call. Hopefully he'll be calling back here in just a second. I've distributed the exhibits, and perhaps I'll call my office and see what's going on. Nope, here they are. Bryce, is that you?
Yes, sir.
Bryce, is that you?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, great. So as indicated, Mr. Examiner, Bryce Ballard will be testifying in this matter, and he's on the phone right now.
Mr. Ballard, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Bryce, would you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Bryce Ballard.
And Bryce, by whom are you employed?
Ballard Petroleum Holdings,
And in what capacity?
VP of Engineering and Operations.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
And your qualifications have been accepted as that of an expert?
That is correct.
Okay. And in fact, you testified at the unitization of the Chatfield-Madison pool, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Bryce, let's, what I've done is I've distributed to the commission staff a copy of exhibits, and presumably you have a set in front of you as well. So let's turn to Exhibit 1, and just to provide a little bit of background information to the commission, I'll have you turn to that exhibit, identify it, and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Exhibit 1 shows the Chatfield-Madison unit, and this is a tract of the a map of the 5 tracts that are included inside the unit, showing the unit boundary.
Okay, and then let's go to Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 shows each of the wells inside the unit, showing their status at the time of unitization. And at the time of unitization, there were 7 wells that were producing inside the unit. The Fines 14-19 at the time was a disposal well that was completed uphill in the Dakota. It has since been plugged back to the Dakota and recompleted in the Madison as an injector. And the Nelson 44-19 was waiting on completion to be turned into an injector immediately upon unitization.
All right, and Exhibit 3?
Exhibit 3 shows the ultimate plan of development for the unit, and it also shows the current status of the unit. The 5 black wells are the 5 current producers, and the 4 current injectors are also labeled. In addition, with the larger blue circle injection symbol, I have identified the 4 wells that we expect to be injectors in our ultimate development plan. One of them is the Nelson 33-19 that's still producing, and the other 3 have not been drilled yet.
So in essence, you are, or Ballard is proceeding along the lines that it indicated it would proceed at the time of unitization. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct.
Okay. Let's then go to Exhibit 4. There's a lot of information on this exhibit. I don't think you have to go through every item, but just summarize the exhibit for us and explain why it's important.
The Chatfield was discovered in March of 2014. Initially, there were 2 operators, Ballard Petroleum and Bear Energy, operated 2 wells towards the south. It was unitized in effective January 1st, 2020, and Ballard Petroleum took over full operations of the unit. The month of first injection then was in July. The oil rate at utilization was 11,565 barrels per month, and the cumulative production at utilization was 804,740 barrels. Currently, as of December 31st, 2021, the rate has increased to 12,771 barrels per month. Cumulative oil production as of December 31st, 2021 is 1,098,795 barrels, and cumulative water injection is 852,550 barrels. Below that, I've labeled the 7 wells that were producing upon unitization, and then the 5 wells that are still currently on production
and the 4 wells that are currently on injection.
Okay, and I know you're going to go into more detail about this issue in a bit, but just sort of a general question. Based on what you've just talked about, is it your opinion that the unit is producing incremental oil at this point in time?
Yes, that is my opinion.
Okay, and your request before the commission today is to secure some tax relief that is provided for under 5751.103, which allows for an exemption of the extraction tax for 5 years on that incremental oil. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that is what we are seeking today.
Okay, let's go on to the next exhibit, which Exhibit 5. Can you tell me what Exhibit 5 is?
Exhibit 5 shows the production before establishment of first injection for the Borstad 30-3, and then my forecast for the primary recovery with Borstad 30-3. I understand that in these hearings it'd be typical for just one forecast for the entire field to be shown instead of showing individual forecasts for each well. The reason that I've divided up these into individual forecasts is primarily because of what was happening in the Borstad 30-3, this well right here, immediately following unitization and prior to first production. What we can see in the chart is that at the very beginning of 2020, that was when unitization happened, and production increased the first 3 months of 2020, peaking in March, fell off slightly in April, and then the well was shut in May of 2020 because of the pricing environment, and brought back online in June of 2020. But the reason for this increase in production is that this is a well that was operated by Bear Energy, has always had a high fluid level, and when Valley Petroleum took the well over, we set up a pumping unit to take advantage of that high fluid level and secured some incremental production. So my goal here was just to explain clearly to the commission the difference between the incremental production in this well that was due to speeding up the pumping unit as opposed to the incremental production that came on after we established injection. That's a result of secondary recovery.
And,
So go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Bryce. I interrupted you. I apologize.
So then my forecast for this well is using a hyperbolic decline with a B factor of 1.2, creating an ultimate recovery and EUR of 644,606 barrels of oil. That's a similar recovery to what I had originally forecasted prior to speeding up the pumping unit. And it's a situation where we're forecasting approximately the same amount of reserves, but accelerated recovery of those reserves as a result of speeding up the pumping unit.
So to summarize briefly, Bryce, it's my understanding your testimony is that you understand that the tax break is for the incremental oil looking at the unit as a whole, but what you have done is provided some information on a well-by-well basis so that you can explain to the commission why the wells were kind of behaving the way they did and why you drew the curve the way you did. Is that a fair assessment of your testimony?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Okay. All right, let's go to Exhibit 6. Tell us what Exhibit 6 is.
Exhibit 6 is the production forecast for the Nelson 34-19. This is a less complicated forecast. The only note is that we did shut in the entire field in May of 2020, and this well came on with a significant amount of flush production in June once we started the field back up.
Right, and Exhibit 7?
Exhibit 7 shows the fine 24-19, and this shows the same story with the shut-in in May and the flush production in June.
And Exhibit 8?
Exhibit 8 is the fine 23-19. Forecasted also with an exponential decline similar to the previous two. We didn't see the same kind of flush production in that well.
And Exhibit 9.
Exhibit 9 shows the Nelson 33-19, and it's noteworthy that we didn't quite come back to our original decline with the flush production in June, excuse me.
And Exhibit 10.
Exhibit 10 shows the Barton Trust 31-30. This is the other well that used the hyperbolic decline with a B factor of 1.2.
All right, and Exhibit 11.
Exhibit 11 shows the Borstad 30-4. This is a well that we had some mechanical issues with once we took over operations. And there was a significant amount of downtime in the first 6 months of the year. The well was down prior to May, and then in June we didn't get that well back online until I believe July. So that's why you don't see any production in June for this well, just of a mechanical failure.
Okay. And now, even though you went through each one of the wells individually, you also then did a curve based on all the production in the unit. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, and that is what is shown in Exhibit 12. This is the grand total of historical production prior to establishing first injection in July of 2020, along with my estimate for the primary recovery forecast for the entire field.
Okay. And with this exhibit, you establish what the primary production would have been without unitization, and for purposes of the tax break, you then need to indicate what the unit will produce over and above that so that you can get the tax break on the incremental production. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what you've done is shown what that incremental production has been to date on Exhibit 13. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Exhibit 13 shows a tabular format with the primary recovery forecast beginning when injection started in July of 2020 and extending all the way through June of 2029. And I have also shown the actual oil production for the 18 months following July of 2020 and ending in December 2021. And then the percent increase in production that I believe to be a result of the secondary recovery operations in that unit. And that has been a number that has been steadily increasing, and I estimate at 36.1% during the month of December 2021.
Okay, and just so that everyone understands, I mean, this is a relatively straightforward exhibit, but so that everyone understands, for January, any oil production over that 9,206 barrels, you would deem to be incremental production and be exempt from the 5% extraction tax as imposed by Chapter 5751 of the North Dakota Century Code. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I misspoke. I said 5751. It's actually 5751.1. Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have. We would offer Exhibits 1 through 13.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Bryce, this is Bruce Hicks. Looking at your Exhibit 12, you're showing here the projected volumes. Well, tell me exactly what this is, because when I look at the year on the bottom, why does it appear that it's only through 2020? Is this production up to the unit date, and then you've projected out what the primary is?
The production is shown up to the date of first injection, which was July of 2020, and then the forecast is only the primary recovery forecast. This chart does not show any of the production since injection started. And this doesn't visually show the wedge that we have created in incremental secondary recovery production. That wedge is just shown in tabular format on Exhibit 13.
And how did you come up with your primary recovery forecast as far as the recovery goes? Did you add up all of those individual projections?
Yes, sir. That was the exact process. I added up each of the individual projections. If you look at the projection parameters in Exhibits 5 through 11 for each well, the initial rate, the B factor when applicable, and the decline rates for each of those wells, and then add that up, you will get what's shown in Exhibit 12 and then tabularly in Exhibit 13.
Okay. And under the tax department's rules 57-51.1-03, it indicates there that incremental production from a secondary recovery project such as this, it has to be certified as a qualified project by the Industrial Commission, and you understand that, right?
Yes, sir. I understand.
Okay. And then under our regulations of the Administrative Code 43-02-10-03, paragraph 2, it indicates there that the secondary recovery project must have achieved for 6 consecutive months an average production level of at least 25% above that primary curve, correct?
And maybe I should respond to that, Bruce. I thought that had been repealed, but because it doesn't provide for that in the statute like it used to. I thought that 25% increase would give you relief, what I refer to as below the line, and to get relief above the line, you just have to demonstrate that you had incremental oil. Perhaps I'm wrong, but that was my understanding.
Okay, well, we'll look into that.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that the tax department's regulation, as far as the primary goes, does indicate that the Industrial Commission shall determine the amount of primary production in a manner which conforms to the practice and procedure used by the Commission at the time the project is certified. So even though you have submitted what you believe is a threshold for incremental oil, the Commission will have to run their own numbers and use those to verify that it is a qualifying secondary recovery unit.
And the way we view that, Mr. Hicks, is just like the statutes require that the commission shall set spacing. Companies come in and make recommendations, and we're not doing anything different than that, as we're making a recommendation. And obviously, we understand it's the commission that makes the ultimate decision.
And Lawrence, are you, you think there's a need for a subsequent hearing after the commission makes that determination? Or do you believe that the commission should just enter an order after we have run the software and made projections on our own?
I think the commission should just enter an order based on utilizing its software and making a determination what it is. If there's some objection by Ballard on this, they would have the option of filing a petition for reconsideration or an appeal.
And Bryce, the 4 wells that you talk about for injection, 3 of those were drilled, is that correct? They were new wells?
If you take a look at the map shown in Exhibit 3,
Okay.
we'll see that the 4 wells that are currently on injection, and I'll just explain quickly each of these 4. The first was defined 14-19. This is a well that was never a producer. We drilled it far enough off structure that just wasn't an oil producer. So initially, we completed that as a disposal well in the Dakota Fort Field, and upon unitization, we plugged back, squeezed those Dakota perfs, and then reperforated and the Madison, and that became the Madison injector. The finds 23-19 is a well that was a producer upon first completion and has subsequently been converted to injection in the Madison. The Nelson 44-19 is a well that, another well that was drilled off structure, and after drilling that well, we decided not to complete it, but to wait until unitization was secured before completing that well. So that well has only ever been an injector. And then the Barton Trust 31-30 is another well that produced for a number of years before being converted to injection.
Okay, and it appears you have a couple subsequent wells you plan to drill in the future for injection to the southwest.
Yeah, that is correct. Our ultimate plan is to convert the Nelson 33-19, which is a current producer, to an injector, and then to also drill 3 additional wells, the Nelson 42-19 to the northeast, and then the O'Connell 42-5 to the southwest, and the Borstad 30-5 to the southwest.
Okay, thank you. Lawrence, we will want to incorporate, of course, all records for the unit, especially. I don't think there's any question that all the production is in there, but we would want to take note of all operations in the unit as far as unit operations go, to meet the requirement that that the unit has started enhanced recovery operations.
When you say all records of the unit, are you talking like the well files? I just don't know where those
Just the
records.
injection wells to show that we have had injection in the unit.
Yeah, and obviously the injection information that goes along with it, right?
Okay.
Yes, no objection to that.
Thank you.
Bryce, on your exhibits 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, are those blue dots, is that the water-oil ratio?
That is correct. That's the oil ratio of each one. But the light blue dots are the water-oil ratio, and the dark blue dots with the line connecting them is the actual water production.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Anything further, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
Very well. This will conclude the hearing for case number 29216. Moving on, case number 29170. Application of Rimrock Oil and Gas Williston LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Twin Buttes Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish an overlapping 1920 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 12, 13, and 24, Township 147 North, Range 92 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on said proposed overlapping 1920 acre spacing unit and or such other further relief. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. And I'm appearing in case 29170 on behalf of Rimrock Oil and Gas Williston, LLC. We intend to call 3 witnesses in this matter. Ms. Jennifer Bland, B-L-A-N-D, will be offering some land testimony. Mr. Chris Gardner, G-A-R-D-N-E-R, will be offering some geologic testimony. And Mr. Mark Schutt, I believe it's Schutt, S-C-H-U-T-T, will be offering some engineering testimony. All 3 witnesses will be appearing by telephone, and I believe they are on the phone right now. Jennifer, are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Great. Did I pronounce Mark's name correctly? Is it Schutt?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, Ms. Bland, Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jennifer, I've distributed the exhibits to the commission staff. Let's start first with your name. Can you please state your full name?
Jennifer Bland,
And Jennifer, by whom are you employed?
Rimrock Oil and Gas.
And in what capacity?
I'm the Land and Regulatory Manager.
And in that capacity, you've testified before the commission previously?
I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
And offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Jennifer, let's turn to the packet of exhibits for 29170. Let's skip the cover page. Let's go to L1. Can you tell me what L1 is?
This is a general locator map showing the proposed spacing unit in green. This is in the Twin Buttes Bakken field in 147 north, 92 west. The proposed spacing unit consists of sections 12, 13, and 24.
And then let's go to L2. Tell me what L2 is.
L2 is a land plat showing the proposed spacing unit in yellow as the 1920. They're currently, basis sections 13 and 24 are currently at 1280 within our Twin Buttes federal unit where the setbacks are reduced. We're proposing to extend it to a 1920 to include section 12, which is owned by WPX. And the working interest is shown there. Rimrock will have the majority working interest at just about 65%. We have consulted with WPX and are supportive of this application.
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed the last part about being supportive. Who did you say it was?
WPX Energy
Okay.
is supportive of this application.
Okay, and they're now Devon, is that correct?
That's correct. I still see them on the NDIC website as WPX Energy, but they have been acquired by Devon.
Okay. No further questions of the land witness.
Any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Jennifer, section 12 is outside the Twin Buttes Federal Exploratory Unit, is that correct?
That is correct.
So how does the production get allocated on a well that's drilled in this spacing unit?
So we'll propose an overlapping CA to the BLM and BIA. The interest within sections 13 and 24 will be based on the unit interest, but then allocated via their tract participation factor.
So in short, section 12 would get a third of the production?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gardner, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Chris, please state your name for the record.
Chris Gardner,
And Chris, by whom are you employed?
Rimrock Oil and Gas,
And in what capacity?
geoscience man.
And in that capacity, you're a geologist, is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's,
Okay. And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
yes,
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
yes.
I'd offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Chris, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet. It's been previously marked as G1. Can you tell me what G1 is?
Sure. Exhibit G1 is a subsea structure map on the top of the Bakken. Contour interval is 25 feet, and the red outline is the proposed spacing unit, sections 12, 13, 24 of 147 north, 92 west. The contours, again, are the top of the structure, Bakken structure, showing a general dip to the west. The type well that we'll see on the next exhibit is located in section 10 of 147 north, 92 west.
Okay, let's go to that type log, G2. Can you briefly describe what's on that type log?
Sure. The type log that section 2, Santa Fe Energy Corporation, Young Bear 1, showing the
lodgepole through the Bakken Formation and then down through the Three Forks. Our primary target in this proposed unit is the middle Bakken. It's about expected to come in around 40 feet thick, average porosity around 5%, and around 30% water saturation.
Okay. And Mark is going to talk a little bit about the number of wells and locations, but it's your understanding that all the additional wells that you want to drill on the 1920, those are going to be Middle Bakken wells, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. No further questions of the geologic witness.
Any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Shutt, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Mark, state your name for the record, please.
Mark Shutt
And Mark, by whom are you employed?
at Rimrock Oil and Gas.
And what capacity?
I'm the manager of development and reservoir engineering.
And you've testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
All right, Mark, let's go to Exhibit E1. Identify Exhibit E1 and tell us what's contained upon it.
Okay, this is our proposed directional well plot. The proposed wells are dashed in green. There's 4 of them, starting out in the south, drilling to the north. All 4 are about 3 miles long.
All right, and Exhibit E2.
E2 is a wellbore diagram. So the typical wellbore design will have 9 to 5/8 inch surface casing, 7-inch intermediate, and then a cemented liner that's 4.5 inch cemented to the TD, which is about 25,000 feet. We'll do a typical completion design, about 1,000 pounds per foot, about 50 stages.
All right, and let's see, E3.
Okay, those are reserves and economics summary. The GOR, about 850 standard cubic feet per barrel out here. Peak thickness, the Bakken is about 40 feet. Porosity, 5%. Water saturation, 30%. The total original oil in place is about 15 million barrels. The EUR per well is 877 MBO. EUR of gas about 1.5 BCF. The cost we're using about $10 million. Net present value is about $9 million. Before tax rate of return 57%, and the payback is a little less than 2 years.
And the next exhibit, E4, that's a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of hearings, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And Mark, in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect correlative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes, it will.
Mr. Examiner, offer the exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Mark, do you plan to drill these wells from the Charging Eagle 2125 2 TFH well site?
That's a mouthful.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
And on Exhibit E2, your wellbore diagram, at the bottom, there's a couple of dashed lines that have a label "no turn." What is that indicating?
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, this is Bruce Hicks. As far as the gas takeaway, what are your plans for it? Of course, we have no gas infrastructure in the area, correct?
That's right. we're talking with other operators and other gatherers at the moment to put in a gathering system. So that's our ultimate goal, to put in a gathering system. In the meantime, we will have either an MRU out there, MRUs out there, or high-density computing run off of generators.
Okay, so the MRUs would be collecting the 50% of the propanes plus, and if you did high Bitcoin operating or something, you would be generating electricity on site and using the gas in a beneficial manner, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And what's the timing on these wells? When are you going to drill them?
Jennifer, do you have that?
Sure. If this application is approved and we're able to sundry these existing wellbores to 3 mile laterals, we would probably be spudding midsummer of 2022.
So it would be this summer then, right?
That is our current plan.
Yeah. And I do have another question for you, Jennifer. On Exhibit L2, you're showing Section 12 to the north that is basically WPX, right?
That's correct.
And do you know who the mineral owner is there?
I believe that is tribal lease. I cannot guarantee that, but it's either allotted or tribal lease with the tree affiliated tribe.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, looking at your Exhibit E1, the existing well bores that do penetrate the spacing unit, the well bore on 1324, that's a Three Forks targeted horizontal, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And the two that come from 23 over into 24, one of them is Three Forks and one of them is Middle Bakken, correct?
Yes, that's right.
When you drill your existing, or when you drill your proposed wells across that existing Middle Bakken well, what are your plans for completion?
We'll PA the producers. We'll pull all the equipment, tubing, pumps out of the well, set retrievable bridge plugs, and go ahead and drill the lateral. And did you ask me about the completion on those?
Yeah.
It'll be our standard kind of typical completion of around 1,000 pounds per foot. And because they're 3 mile laterals, we'll add stages, so it'll be about 50 stages.
And do you plan to do anything special with your completion when you cross over the existing wellbore?
We are discussing. We're discussing that. So maybe not completing within a couple hundred feet of those wellbores.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any further questions from staff? Anything further, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29170. The time is 10:18. Why don't we take a quick break, come back at 10:25. And we are back on the record. We'll begin with case number 29217. Application of Mercury Resources LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Briar Creek Madison Pool, Williams and Mckenzie Counties, North Dakota as follows. Allow the drilling of an increased density well on a 640-acre spacing unit comprised of Section 23, Township 152 North, Range 104 West, and create and establish an overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit comprised of Sections 22 and 23, Township 152 North, Range 104 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on said proposed overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit and such other and further relief as appropriate. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. Appearing in this matter, case 29217, on behalf of Mercury Resources. We intend to call two witnesses in this case. Mr. Conrad Woodland will be offering some geologic testimony, and he'll be qualified as an expert, hopefully, and offer that geologic testimony. And then he'll be offering some factual information with respect to land, some very basic land information. And then we'll also be calling Kyle Hudson, and Kyle will be offering some engineering testimony.
Okay. And are they on the line now?
Yes, they're on the line.
All right. Mr. Woodland, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
One moment, Mr. Woodland.
Sorry.
Can you answer again, Mr. Woodland?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Conrad, can you please state your full name for the record?
Conrad Woodland,
And Conrad, by whom are you employed?
Mercury Resources,
And in what capacity?
as a senior geologist and reserve engineering.
Okay. So you're both a geologist and an engineer, or a geologic engineer, probably better accurately described, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
That's correct.
And in addition to offering some expert geologic testimony, you're going to basically offer some facts with respect to some land issue. Is that right? Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay, Conrad, let's go to the packet of exhibits, and there are some things on the cover page. Why don't you just briefly describe what's contained on the cover page?
The first page, or the cover page, is a locator map that shows the location of the unit that we're in discussion about, that's in Mckenzie County, Township 152, Range 104, and specifically Sections 22 and 23.
Okay. And then let's go to L1. Tell me what L1 is.
L1 is basically a more zoomed in, more zoomed in versus the basin wide. So same description, again, locating the red box is the actual unit in discussion.
Okay. And then let's go to L2.
L2, specifically the tracks 1 and 2 noted. The red outline is the proposed new unit spacing. The well bores, as you can see here in green, are current producing Ratcliffe and Nesson. The well bore in track 2 is actually a lower, it's a Nesson producing well. And then the proposed new wells also seen there, coming off the southeast corner of track 2,
Okay.
or surface location there.
And with respect to the location of your wellbore that's going to go into, I'm having trouble reading the sections lines, but the into section 23, and that well that's going to go into section 23 and 22, the engineering exhibits are going to better demonstrate just where those wellbores are projected to go. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's go then to L3 and tell us what that is.
L3 is the breakdown of the working interest owners in both tracks 1 and 2. They, as you can see, are actually identical in terms of the working interest owners. Noted here is Mercury Resources, Murata Energy, and Resource Strategy.
Okay, so whether you have 640 spacing or 1280 spacing, the ownership is going to be the same, is that correct?
That is correct.
Let's go on now to the geologic testimony where you've been qualified as an expert. Let's start with G1. Tell me what G1 is.
G1 is the targeted interval, the Madison Ratcliffe. This is a subsea TVD structure map. Again, highlighting the red outline for the proposed unit. The red lines are the proposed new wells as, again, surface location in that southeast corner of 23. And then the other green sticks are the current producing Ratcliffe wells shown here on the map.
And I know I was a little confused when we discussed this recently preparing for the hearing. The two laterals that you have proposed and that you indicate here in 22 and 23, it's basically one vertical hole with two laterals. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Let's go on then to Exhibit G2. Can you tell me what G2 is?
G2 is a type section. This is actually one of the producing wells within the Briar Creek field, the Goodrich 1-22. Noted here is the Ratcliffe lateral target interval that we'll be basically drilling for these two laterals. And then also noted, as I mentioned, there is a deeper, what's called the Nesson, also in the Madison group. That is the current wellbore that's producing in section 23. So we're looking at a lateral target that's well above that Nesson producer.
So if this application is granted and you're successful, you're going to have both Nesson and Ratcliffe production in the 1280. Is that correct?
There will be both Nesson and Ratcliffe, correct.
Okay. No further questions for the geologic witness.
Any questions from commission staff?
Conrad, just to confirm, so the horizontal diagonal well in 23 you identified as being a Nesson targeted horizontal lateral, is that correct?
The proposed new, the red outlines, if you go to Exhibit G1, if I'm answering your question, the red is the proposed new horizontals that will be targeting Ratcliffe. As you can see, there's an existing horizontal in section 23. That horizontal targeted the Nesson.
Okay.
So that's an existing producing wellbore.
Yep, and then the existing horizontal well, as depicted on G1 in 22, that one is a Ratcliffe horizontal target, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's all I need, thanks.
Yes.
Conrad, so the Mercury's only planning on drilling one well with two laterals. And normally the well in section 23 shouldn't share with owners in section 22. It's not going to penetrate section 22. But since do you know what the mineral interest is in those two sections?
I do have a breakdown of the mineral interest, yes.
And what is that?
The royalty ownership between, so it's the Goodrich and the Hall, in terms of, I don't know how to say what is that. There's royalty owners totaling of about, are they identical as a question? I don't believe they're identical ownership. And there's 20 some odd royalty owners in both of those units in 22 and 23.
Okay, we would not want you to submit the breakdown of the mineral ownership in 22 and in 23.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a follow-up question? Conrad, if this application is granted, what's the timing for the drilling of the well?
Currently, we're planned in the late summer or late fall at this stage. And that's subject to there's a shortage of getting pipe, et cetera. So from the logistics side, there's backlog. So right now we're planning end of summer, beginning of fall.
Okay. And I might just mention, Mr. Examiner, as I indicated in some of the questioning of Conrad a little bit earlier, I was under the impression when I made the application that we were talking about 2 well bores, not 1 well bore with 2 laterals. If the application is granted, authorizing the drilling of 1 well with 2 laterals, and the ownership does not end up being common, we may have to come back and request a commingling as well. So you may see that from us down the road.
Any further questions from staff?
Conrad, this is Bruce Hicks. Looking at the 2 different spacing units, if you have 1 wellbore that you're producing from both spacing units, how would you intend to differentiate between how much fluids are coming from each?
Similar, well, yeah, that's a good question, and you would have just a sum cum. You wouldn't have a differentiate between the 2. There's a feedback. Similar to like you see in section 34, it's yeah, there's no way you're understanding what leg lateral is producing what.
And tell me again what the lateral that's going to go across the 2-mile lateral, what is that target?
It is also Ratcliffe.
And is it your intention to drill one of the laterals and do any testing on it, or just drill the 2 laterals and produce them simultaneously?
Drill the 2 laterals and produce them simultaneously. Well, again, it's up the 1 vertical wellbore, so the lateral component is we would be drilling out of open hole for that second lateral. These are open hole completions, so there's no casing so all the existing laterals out here are all the same with that open hole configuration.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none, we'll move on. Mr. Hudson, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
So do you guys have 2 phones or something? We're getting a lot of feedback, or do you have a computer on or something? Or?
Is that better?
Yep, it is. Thank you. Kyle, state your name for the record, please.
Kyle Hudson,
And Kyle, by whom are you employed?
Mercury Resources.
And in what capacity?
I'm VP of Operations, and I provide the operations engineering.
Okay. And have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Kyle, Let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, which is Exhibit E1. Can you tell me what E1 is?
That's the wellbore diagram, and it's just showing the casing design and open hole, and it shows the details for the two laterals.
All right. And then let's go to E2. Tell me what that is.
I don't have that right in front of me, actually. What?
It's a...
Conrad, do you...
E2 is the reserve run, which actually I did. So if we want to discuss E2, I would be the individual, I guess.
Mr. Examiner, do you have any objection if we go back to Conrad to have him discuss E2?
No, let's have Mr. Woodland.
I mean, he is a geologic engineer, so. Conrad, okay, let's go to E2. Can you briefly discuss E2?
Correct. So the first box, again, this is the reserve run on the dual lateral. It at the top, target interval. Next box is the initial rate. That's derived off the offset. We have currently 9 rack cliffs within the field that we operate, so that was derived off of those 9 wells. The final rate used in the reserve run, decline rate of 4%, exponential. The initial hyperbolic is exponent is 1.2, again, derived off of the offset wells. GOR, EUR oil, gas, and then ultimate EUR of 271. The box below that are some of the components in that reserve run using the average of $70 oil, less that deduct gas prices, drilling costs as of, I would say, a month ago. Our LOE per month, again, that's taken off of what we are currently at with the existing offset wells. It shows the 100% working interest, the net revenue interest, and then the actual net present value discounted 10% of $968,000, rate of return of 25%, and a payout in 3.3 years.
And in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
And Conrad, how much time do you need to put together the information with respect to mineral ownership in and under this proposed 1280?
I already have that in hand, so it's in a spreadsheet form, and I can send that out whenever needed.
Okay, just send it to me, and we'll request that the record remain open. Is the state open on Monday?
I don't believe so,
Okay,
no.
so how about Tuesday at 5?
Tuesday at 5?
Yep.
All right, so that is Tuesday, February 22nd.
Yep. So Conrad, if you can send that to me, I'll get that to the commission before the deadline.
Sure.
And Mr. Examiner, we'd offer our exhibits, and that concludes our presentation.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Conrad or Kyle, I guess. I don't see any of the typical reservoir parameters. Could you also provide a supplemental that would include reservoir thickness, porosity, water saturation values?
Yeah.
Looking at E1, it looks like the intent would be to drill. I'm looking at the bottom of E1 where you have lateral 1 and then lateral 2. Looks like your intent would be to drill the longest of the 2 laterals first. Is that correct?
Yes, I think we drill them in that order. There are some concerns with lost returns while we're drilling, but I think that would be the order that we would drill them in.
Okay. Do you, I guess again for either of you, the existing completions in the area, let me ask this, how do you intend to open hole completion on both laterals, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, do you intend to stimulate those in any way?
No, typically those laterals haven't been stimulated, and we don't plan on stimulating them.
Okay, is that the same for the existing horizontal lateral in the Nesson on 23?
Yeah.
So open hole and no stimulation or further completion?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Is geologically between your two, and specifically speaking in 23, there between the two targets of the Nesson and the Ratcliffe, what is separating those two intervals as reservoirs?
In regards to rock properties, you have a mix of shale and hydrite, and thin salt layers. So there's
Okay.
was that the question as to the rock properties?
Yeah, to some extent. And then while it was mentioned that there's some concern about possible loss while drilling, is there concern that the Nesson depletion will cause problems?
No, that's more just the Ratcliffe fracturing, I think. And the wells, if you look at the wells that were drilled back initially in 2006 and 2007 by Savannah, they had some low repairs in the Ratcliffe while they were drilling.
Okay, so that's just Ratcliffe target concerns?
Yes, right.
Okay, thank you.
Conrad, on your exhibit E2, your initial rate and your final rate, are those barrels per month?
Yeah, that's good. Yes, it is. Actually, the 6,700 is both. Those are both initial rates daily. Sorry.
So this well is going to produce over 6,000 barrels a day?
The initial rate, yes, the offset wells ranged from, oh, I'm sorry, God, no, incorrect, that is monthly, yep. I need to change the BOPD, that should be BO per month. I apologize for that. So no, yeah, you're correct, that is on a monthly 30-day rate, and then that 10 should be a 300. Yep.
And then on your drilling cost, that's 3.6 million?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Conrad, this is Bruce Hicks. We would want you to correct that exhibit and resubmit that if you would.
Will do.
And Kyle, I do have a question about development. As far as the second lateral that you're going to drill out of your longest lateral, will it be an open hole sidetrack within the Madison pool itself, or will you kick off above?
No, it will be an open hole sidetrack within that.
And if this is successful, do you plan to have any additional Ratcliffe development in the 1280?
No, I would not expect there would be additional development. That's the purpose of the current proposal, is to capture the undrilled, which is in section 23. So that is currently at no Ratcliffe production, and then address the development for section 22.
And we don't have any type of accumulation or porosity thickness or anything that's been mapped here, does the Ratcliffe interval, is it consistent across this 1280? Or does it vary widely?
I can provide no, it's not. The porosity zone is not. The Ratcliffe in itself is a consistent interval through the basin. The porosity, so it's a combination stratigraphic and structural component that controls production. So this is a porosity thick, and I can add that map. It has been mapped. So the controls are majority of it is porosity.
And is there an oil-water contact?
There has not been an identified oil-water contact, in part that the other component to production is fractures, and then there's no way to determine that fracture. And so from a log standpoint, no, I don't identify a water contact, and then adding the fracture component would just be kind of a false line put in the. It'd be more related to porosity.
So you believe there's northeast-southwest trending open fractures and you're trying to intercept them, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Conrad, please do supplement with that porosity thickness map you referenced.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Okay, and Mr. Bender, do you think that time frame is still going to work for the supplements?
Yes,
Okay.
if we have a problem, we'll just request an extension.
Sounds good. Anything further?
Nothing further.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29217. Moving on. Case number 29218. Application of Enerplus Resources Corporation for an order amending the field rules for the Lost Bridge and/or Big Gulch Bucket Pool, so to create and establish an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 36, Township 148 North, Range 97 West, Section 31, Township 148 North, Range 96 West, Section 1, Township 147 North, Range 97 West, and Section 6, Township 147 North, Range 96 West, Dunn County, North Dakota, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between the existing spacing units of said proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit and/or such other and further relief as appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Mr. Examiner, Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 18.
When you hear the tone, you will be the fourth person to join the meeting. Joining the meeting.
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. We're getting a lot of feedback. You guys got a computer on? Hello?
I'm up. Hello? Hello, Lawrence.
Yeah, we got a tremendous amount of feedback. You guys have phones on, or not phones, but computers?
I just muted mine.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we still have a lot of feedback.
I'm hearing the buzz.
What'd you say?
I can hear the buzz, yes.
Well, why don't you hang up and I'll try again. Hello? Yeah, is this Blake? Okay, so it's just you and I on the phone right now, so, hey, Julian. So it's Blake and Julian. We got Jeff and Topher we're waiting for yet? Okay. Okay, is Topher gonna just join then, when it's time for his case? Okay. Did I get headset? Is that what I? Okay, you guys still there?
We are.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'll try it again. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter on behalf of Enterplus Resources USA Corp. And we'll have 3 witnesses in this matter. Blake Brown will be offering some land testimony. Jeff Kierman, I get that right, Jeff? Kierman?
That's right.
All right, and
Okay.
Jeff will be offering some geologic testimony, and Mr. Julian Hornack will be offering some engineering testimony. I believe I got the exhibits handed out, so we're ready to go.
All right. Blake Brown, are you on the line?
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Blake, will you state your name for the record, please?
Blake Brown,
And Blake, by whom are you employed?
Interplus Resources USA Corporation.
What capacity?
I'm a senior regional landman.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
They were.
Offer the further testimony of Mr. Brown as an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Blake, let's go to Exhibit 1 in the packet for 29218. Can you tell me what that exhibit is and then briefly describe what's contained upon it?
Yes, this is our area reference map showing the Lost Bridge Field and the Big Gulch Field, both outlined in green. Also, our proposed 2560 is outlined in red dashed with the yellow.
All right, and then let's go to the next exhibit, L2.
L2 is our operation overview map. This particular 2560 is situated on 4 separate townships. So it encompasses Section 31 of Township 148 North, Range 96 West, Section 36 of Township 148 North, Range 97 West, Section 1 of Township 147 North, Range 97 West, and then finally Section 6 of Township 147 North, Range 96 West. The pale gray numbers are the working interest calculations for the underlying units, and in the top left is the proposed 2560 overlapping spacing unit working interest breakdown.
Okay, let's go to the next exhibit then, Exhibit L3. Tell us what that is.
Exhibit L3 is just a boiled down ownership map showing the proposed lease line well in black there without all the underlying well bores.
Okay, then let's, I guess that's the only land exhibits we have, so no further questions for the land witness.
Any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Move on to Jeff Kierman, was it? Sorry.
Kiernan.
Kierman. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Jeff, state your name for the record.
Jeff Kiernan,
And Jeff, by whom are you employed?
Enterplus Resources,
In what capacity?
senior geologist.
Have you testified before the commission previously?
I have not.
What I'd like you to do, Jeff, is just very briefly highlight for us your educational background and work experience.
Yes, I have an undergraduate bachelor's degree in geology from the University of Western Ontario from 1996, and a master's degree in geology from Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario, 1999. I've been employed in the oil and gas industry since 1999, starting with
a company called Crestor Energy that was taken over by various steps and ended up as part of ConocoPhillips. I was employed there until 2008, at which point I took a job with Enerplus in Calgary, worked with them in the Western Canada Basin, and then in Appalachia, out of their Pittsburgh office, which is no longer there, and transferred to Denver in 2013, where I've been working Appalachia, DJ, and recently Williston Basin operations.
In preparation for today's hearing, have you made a thorough study and review of all the relevant geologic matters?
I have.
And have you prepared or had prepared under your control and supervision some exhibits you intend to sponsor?
There are 2 exhibits.
Okay. For the further testimony, this witness is that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay. Jeff, before we go on to the first exhibit, can you just spell your last name for us, please?
K-I-E-R-N-A-N.
Okay. All right, Jeff,
2 N's with no N.
Okay. Jeff, let's go to the first geologic exhibit. I'm looking at G1. Can you briefly, identify and then briefly describe what's contained on that exhibit?
Yes, Exhibit G1 is a local structure contour map constructed on the top of the Bakken Shale, the Upper Bakken Shale, showing that the wellbore will be drilled in a slight local depression. You can see it's about minus 8750 sub-sea, where the surface location of the Bice lease line well will be, and the structure jumps steeply off to the east, where it climbs what's left of the Ness and Anticline in this area, and more shallowly off to the west. The pink outline is the proposed 2560 OLSU, and the lease line path is shown in the black dashed arrow.
Okay, let's go to G2.
Exhibit G2 is a type well log of the reservoir interval for the Bakken and Three Forks. This is from one section to the southwest of the OLSU in section 11, a pilot well for one of the laterals there. You can see the middle Bakken interval is highlighted green, the Three Forks target is highlighted pink, and the stratigraphic divisions that we use in-house at Enerplus are named on the left side.
No further questions for this witness.
Any questions from commission staff?
The, Jeff, the proposed well, is it proposed to be in the Bakken or in the upper Three Forks?
At present, we are proposing to put it in the Bakken.
Okay.
But there is the possibility of moving to the Three Forks, pending discussion with some of the other working interest owners.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, are you the appropriate witness to discuss the existing lease line 2560 consisting of 25, 36, 30, and 31?
It would probably be best to defer to the land witness, but we have been in discussion with XTO about this matter.
Okay, well, I'd like to ask Blake a question then, or maybe whoever wants to answer it. I assume you want that lease line spacing unit terminated.
Yeah, this is Blake. We have discussed with XTO, and it's our understanding that they're going to drill further north so that they will apply for that to be terminated. We're not planning on having 2 lease line wellbores in between 31 and 36 there.
So is your understanding that they may apply for a laydown 1280 consisting of 25 and 30?
No, it would be a stand-up consisting of 19, 30, and then 25, and whatever section is north of 25 there.
24?
So they'd shift that, so they'd shift that 2560 up 1 mile to follow the same pattern that we're on.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Moving on. Julian Hornack, are you on the line?
I am.
Do Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Julian, state your name for the record, please.
Julian Hornak,
And by whom are you employed?
Enterprise Resources,
What capacity?
as a reservoir engineer.
And you've testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yeah.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Julian, let's go to Exhibit E1, identify that exhibit, and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Yes, Exhibit E1 is a generic wellbore diagram schematic for our Middle Bakken and Three Forks wells.
Right, and E2.
I'm sorry, I don't have an E.
Okay, I guess I'm sorry. I guess it's RE1. Is that what you go to? You go to E1 to RE1?
That's correct.
Okay.
Exhibit RE1 represents our Bakken reservoir parameters, which is the intended formation for this well at this moment. And with a thickness of 40 feet, a porosity of 6.7%, and a water saturation of 28%, with a formation volume factor of 1.3 and an estimated recovery of 25%. We're seeing stock tank oil in place of roughly 30 million barrels in place, with existing wells expected to produce about 1.75 million barrels, and we estimate the recovery per well per each Bakken well in this area, including the proposed lease line at 600 MBO.
Okay, and then RE2.
RE2 represents our Bakken economic summary at an oil price of $55 with a lateral length of 9,900 feet and an initial capital investment of $6.4 million. We're expecting to see a rate of return of 100%.
And then trying to see the exhibit number on this gas capture affidavit. I don't see one, so let's just make this GM or GC1. Is this a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of hearings?
That is correct.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
All the questions I have, Mr. Examiner.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have any objection. Blake, are you still there?
I'm here.
Blake, in your discussions with XTO, do you think you could get them to submit an explanation of how they plan to respace the lease line area? It looks to me like there's a 3840 to the north of 1, 12, 13, 6, 7, and 18, so if they were...
Joining the meeting.
Two for Lewis.
So if they were going to
We can certain.
Respace 24, 25, 19, and 30, that would fit the pattern.
Right. We can certainly work with XTO to submit something on what their plan of spacing is.
Okay, thank you.
Next Friday. Not tomorrow, but the following Friday.
Next Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the 25th, February 25th.
Thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, anything further, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
The record will remain open until February 25th. That will conclude the hearing for case number 29218. Moving on. Case number 29219. Application of Enterplus Resources USA Corporation for an order amending the field rules for the South Fork Bakken Pool so to create and establish an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 3, 4, 9, and 10, Township 148 North, Range 93 West, Dunn County, North Dakota, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between the existing spacing units of said proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit, and or such other and further relief as appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing this matter, case 29219 on behalf of Interplus Resources USA. We'll be calling three witnesses: Blake Brown, who appeared in the previous case; Topher Lewis, who will be appearing in this case and offering geologic testimony; and then Julian Hornack, who also appeared in the previous case. We'll be starting with Mr. Brown.
All right. Mr. Brown, are you still on the line?
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Blake, let's go to Exhibit L1.
Yeah, Exhibit L1 is our area reference map showing the South Fork Field in the dark green, and then the proposed 2560 overlapping spacing unit in the dashed red and yellow.
And then L2.
Yeah, L2 is a zoomed-in operator overview map that shows the proposed overlapping spacing unit consisting of sections 3, 4, 9, and 10, Township 148 North, Range 93 West. The pale gray text is the underlying working interest, and then the red outline box in yellow is the overall working interest in the overlapping spacing unit.
Okay, so it appears that Interplus has less than a majority interest in this proposed 2560. Will Interplus have discussions with the other working interest owners to determine who should be the operator?
We will.
Okay, let's go to L3.
L3 is a map depicting the overlapping spacing unit without the underlying well bores, and it shows our proposed well in dark black there.
And once again, it shows the percentage of interest in each of the underlying spacing units. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. No further questions.
Any questions from commission staff? Okay. Seeing none. Topher Lewis, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Topher, state your name for the record.
My legal name is Russell Lewis, but I go by Topher Lewis.
And by whom are you employed?
Interplus Resources USA Corp.
What capacity?
I'm a geology lead for the Williston Basin.
And you've testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, they were.
For the further testimony, this witness is that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Topher, let's go to G1. Tell me what that is.
Exhibit G1 is a local structure map on the Upper Bakken Shale, subsea TVD. Contour map interval is 10 feet. And on this map, the green lines in the background are all existing producing wells. The black lines are the contour intervals. The structure in this area is going slightly down dip to the west. The red dashed outline is our proposed 2560 overlapping spacing unit, consisting of sections 3, 4, 9, and 10. And the blue solid line is the proposed lease line that we're currently calling the Cushion Well, that will be drilled from north to south coming off the pad in the southeast of 36 that we're calling our racing pad.
Okay, and then G2.
And G2 is an offset reference log. This well is from one of our wells, our Pumpkin Well, in section 14 of 148.93, so just to the east of this proposed lease line. The reference log shows the left column is gamma ray, the second column to the right is resistivity, the third column is neutron porosity, density porosity, and then the fourth column on the right with bulk density in PE. The black lines are all of the internal tops that we use inside of Enerplus. And then in the boxes, we have outlined the Middle Bakken target, which is highlighted in green, and the Three Forks target, which is highlighted in purple. And this proposed well is planned to be drilled in the Three Forks. That is our primary target right now.
No further questions.
Any questions from commission staff?
Topher, this is Bruce Hicks. The wells drilled down in section 10, the south half of 10, that have the drill backs, are those rimrock wells in the Middle Bakken or the Three Forks First Bench?
So they are by Rimrock, you are correct. They're a mix of Middle Bakken and Three Forks. And our plan as of right now is to drill this slightly inside of our unit. So as we drill to the south, we'll probably verge to the west a little bit to safely avoid the heels of those wells. We're working with Rimrock right now to get all of their directional surveys, and our drilling engineer will work on everything he needs to do for anti-collision against those wells as we get to the south.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Seeing no further questions from staff. Julian Hornack, you're still on the line.
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Julian, let's go to exhibit, trouble seeing the exhibit numbers on here. It should be E1, shouldn't it?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go to E1. Is it on here someplace?
I do not see it on the page,
Okay.
but it is listed as E1 on the reference page.
Okay, let's mark this as E1 and tell me what's contained on it.
Yes, E1 is, again, a generic wellbore diagram for our Middle Bakken and Three Forks wells.
Okay, and RE1?
RE1 consists of the Three Forks reservoir parameters, and with a thickness of 30 feet in this area with a porosity of 8.9%, a water saturation of 28%, an expected formation volume factor of 1.4, and an estimated recovery factor of 25%. We're seeing 27.2, roughly 27.3 million barrels, stock tank barrels in place. And the expected recovery from existing wells is 1.2 million barrels. We expect to get an estimated 500 MBO per equivalent Three Forks well.
And then RE2.
Yes, and RE2 are the Three Forks economic summary, and at an oil price of $55 held flat, and a lateral length of 9,900 feet with an initial capital cost of $6.4 million of investment. We're expecting to get 100% rate of return.
And then the last exhibit we'll have marked as GC1. Is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of hearings?
That is correct.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yeah.
Mr. Examiner, no further questions. Offer the exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Julian, the stand-up 1280 consisting of sections 4 and 9, do you plan to drill those wells at the same time you drill this lease line well?
You mean the rest of the wells in that unit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
And the existing well in the east half of 4 and the west half of 4, those are 320 acre spacing unit wells?
That is correct. This is Blake. That's correct.
And do you plan to produce those wells when you drill the 1280 wells?
I do not believe so once we do the 1280.
So your plan is when the 1280 is drilled, then you'll, apparently right before that, you'll plug those 320 wells?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Julian, this is Bruce Hicks. I do have one question about the drill backs. I'm looking at Exhibit L2 on those rimrock wells that have drilled back and that are in the southeast of Section 9. Do you know how those wells were drilled? Do you know if those drill backs were actually in the Bakken pool?
I don't believe they enter the Bakken pool or the Three Forks pool until they get past the setback on the 500-foot setback.
Okay, and I would imagine you're looking at that, and it's not a 500-foot setback for them, correct? It's only 150-foot setback since they're perpendicular to that line.
Yes, I don't know. Yes.
Okay, and I'm just wondering how you're going to avoid fracking into those heels if they are set in the first or the last stage there is within approximately 150 feet of the line.
Yeah, we'll be working with our completions department as well as Rimrock to ensure no destructive behavior.
Okay, well, if you would address that in a supplement to us, just so we can understand what your plan is, to the best that you can, anyway. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next Friday.
Next Friday again. Okay, same February 25th. Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Anything further, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
All right, we will leave the record open for until February 25th, next Friday. And that will conclude the hearing for case number 29219. Moving on. Case number 29220, application of Liberty Resources Management Company, LLC, for an order suspending and, after hearing, revoking the following permits issued to Murex Petroleum Corporation for the Caden Coal 9-33H-A number 3MB well, file number 38713, and the Caden Coal 9-33H-A number 2MB well, file number 38714, both with a surface location in the southwest quarter of Section 9, Township 157 North, Range 95 West, West Tioga Bakken Pool, Williams County, North Dakota, and for such other relief as appropriate. This case is dismissed. Moving on, case number 29073, application of WPX Energy Williston LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Hart Butte Bakken Pool, Dunn and McLean Counties, North Dakota, to create and establish the following: 2 overlapping 1920-acre spacing units comprised of sections 22, 23, and 24, and 25, 26, and 27, all in Township 149 North, Range 91 West, authorizing the drilling of up to 5 horizontal wells in each proposed overlapping 1920-acre spacing unit, and an overlapping 3840-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27, all in Township 149 North, Range 91 West, authorizing the drilling of 1 horizontal well on or near the section line between existing spacing units on said proposed 3840-acre spacing unit, and or for such other and further relief as appropriate. This case is continued to March. And that will conclude